Okay, today we've got a very valuable video. The other day I was recording a full 1 hour plus sales training for all my members inside Agency Start, which is my coaching program. But essentially I thought, why not give you guys something for free on YouTube? So I've basically cut out a short segment of it. So yeah, you can get a lot of value from this. It's basically what I've learned from having 1,000+ sales calls. And just when it comes to handling objections, this is by far the best way. Very in-depth technical stuff. I go over the micro nuances that separates like average salespeople from like the best in the world. So yeah, I definitely recommend watching. You'll definitely get a lot better at sales. And yeah, enjoy. I'm not going to talk too much. Let's get into it. What if I told you guys that sales is easy? It's not hard, and everything you've been told about it is probably making you worse. So in this complete sales training for all the Agency Start members, I'm basically going to dive deep. This isn't going to be a basic sales training. I'm going to go in depth into the psychology and the human nature behind sort of how we can make it easy, and how when we get to the pricing part of the sales school, they can just, put the credit card or debit card into the Stripe and just pay. Like, you got to understand that most agency owners suck at objection handling to the point where like it's so easy to win nowadays if you just understand this. And I'm going to share the micro nuances that make or separate bad salespeople from good salespeople, and it's not as big of a difference as you think. Because me and you can have the same script, but there are things that I will do that will just make it easier for me to close deals. So I'm not going to talk too much, I'm just going to get into it. But essentially, a lot of the hard part about sales can be won before we even get on the call. Like, in your mind, you have this idea that when you get to the end of the call and you say your price, there's going to be a ton of objections, but we can win the war before even, starting in it. Like, as you can see, I've put a quote. If you haven't read the book, I believe it's The Art of War. It's a great book. Watch it if you want. Read it if you want. It's late here, but yeah, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. We can win the game of sales before we even get to the end part. And that's what this video is about, is how can we pre-frame the sales call to the point where when we get to the end of the call, they've got their credit card and they're ready to buy straight away. That's what we want. It's going to shorten the sales cycle and just make your life easier, make their life easier. And yeah, you can close one call closes, and in a 45-minute period, you can go from being a complete stranger to this person, or hopefully you would have warmed them up before the call using our standard operating procedure. But yeah, long story short, before the call, maybe they don't know who you are. To the end of the call, they're giving you their card info. How can we do that, and how can we make it as easy as possible for both parties? Now, it only makes sense to start this training with how you need to position yourself mentally before the call, because this is something that I really don't see that's common in sales trainings. Yes, they give you the questioning SOPs and all the processes, but I think you can generally win sales before you even get on the call. And I made this mistake myself, so I had to learn through my mistakes. But as you guys are watching in the community and in the program, you can learn from me, so you don't have to go like a crazy amount of calls, and you can just start your sales journey or agency journey, or whatever you're on, with the highest sort of conversion rate, because you understand this knowledge. Now, I think that I just want to point out that the only way you can get truly good at sales is through repetition and empirical knowledge, but at least understanding this, you're going to know the sort of micro nuances that make bad people or bad sales reps to good sales reps. So if you go into the call with the belief that you need to close this client, then you're screwed. Like, that's what I ran into this problem like not too long ago, probably 6 months to a year, when I was, not as good at sales as I am now. Obviously I've had like over 1,000 sales calls now, so I've definitely done my time in sales and on Zoom in Google Meets. But yeah, essentially a lot of beginners, me included, I went into sales or the calls thinking like, oh, I need to close this client. And that's just the complete wrong mindset. Like, obviously it's like nature, or it's natural to you to do that because you're financially incentivized to close that client because you make money, and obviously you want more clients. However, this isn't how sales works. Now, let me explain. You need to think of the call as a chance for you to diagnose their problems to see if you would be of value to them. Because quite frankly, before the call, you don't even know if you would be a good fit for them or they would be a good fit for you. And when you go into the call thinking, oh, I must close this client, it's very black and white, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and it's also the wrong paradigm that you just shouldn't have. Because you don't know if you're even going to be able to help them. And when you position it as like when I think about sales call now, I don't think about, oh, I need to close this client. I think about, I'm going to get on the call, figure out their problems, see if I can even help them, and if I can, then we can go from there. That is how you should frame yourself, because it puts less pressure on you, and it's just more accurate, if that makes sense. But basically it puts less pressure on you, and it makes you less, I'm going to explain this in a minute, but obviously you should know that sales is a transfer of energy. So by nature, if we're going into the call, not obviously we want to close them, but if we can, but I think you get where I'm coming from. It sort of pushes the energy from us, and it gives us a not needing them factor. Because, let me explain. So sales is a transfer of energy. That's pretty self-explanatory, but the game changed for me when I understood this. My motto is low attachment, high conviction. We don't want to be attached to the outcome of a sales call, but we want to have high conviction and urgency to close. So I'll go over how we can do this, because there's a lot of and this isn't regular sales training. This is very technical, in-depth stuff. But essentially, low attachment is crucial, and this changed the game for me. I truly mean that. This honestly got prospects confused when they got on calls with me, because they were like, this guy doesn't even care if he closes us. Because when you go into the call with your focus when you get on a sales call should just be to help them as much as possible. And when your goal is to help them and not be attached to a certain outcome, whether you close a client or don't close a client, it pushes a sense of this person really wants to help me. And that is when people are much more likely to buy. Because I see this a lot in sales reps and just beginners, because they're not obviously I review a lot of your guys' sales calls, but I see it especially in beginners that obviously you want to get your first client, you want to get your first 5 clients, you want to get to 10k per month, but if you come across as needy and pushy, and don't get me wrong, this is an objection handling sort of training as well, because I'll go in that later in the video, but the way in which we need to push back on the objections has to be different. And I'm going to go over how we can do this and how we can push back without flaring egos, without hiring their guard. So this is in depth, right? This is going to be technical stuff, so get a notepad out. But essentially low attachment, but you need to be confident. So pre-framing and positioning yourself in a way in which you're just trying to help them is a lot better than going into the call thinking, oh, I need to close this client. Now, I get it, you want to make money like everyone does, but you don't know if you can even help them yet. So stop trying to do it. But I made that mistake myself. And also, if you, a common relationship between boys and girls, what you'll notice is that the girls, it's crazy, but girls will want boys who don't really, reply back to them or respond back to them. And it's kind of the exact same in sales. So in sales, right, it's whoever needs the other person more wins. So I've had it where I've had a sales call and I say to them, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think I'm the right person to do this for you. And they're like, oh, I really want to work with you. And that makes them want to work with me more because I pushed them away. And that, I'm going to get into this because it's really it's weird. And I can't explain this to people who don't, haven't been in this position. But when you push people away on sales calls, they kind of want, they're like, why can I not work with you? And I'm like, because obviously there's a lot of factors. If you're working with me, I want to make sure that you're a good fit and you actually want to, you need to make sure you're a good fit. And when I turn people away because I don't think they're they're going to be a good fit. They want to they want to work with me even more. Like it's hard to explain, but yeah, same with like relationships. When like boys ghost girls, it makes them more like it makes them want them more compared to like if a boy is trying to constantly chase a girl. I think you get the point. So I'm not going to go too much in depth on this, but it's pretty interesting stuff, and we can use the same sort of philosophy in sales. So let me move myself back up. But the key to sales, right, is literally getting the prospect to open up and talk for 70% of the call. Like, I'm not joking. When I get on calls, you'll notice I literally don't speak. And if I do speak, I'm saying something important. Because if you want like one piece of advice to beginners on sales calls, it would literally be speak as little as possible, be empathetic, and just, show that you're listening and you care for them. And you want to, obviously you should want to help them. Like, if you're not doing that, then why are you here? But yeah, getting them to speak is everything. Like, the most important thing. So the pros, the benefits of not speaking as much is you can't mess up as much. You get them to speak, which you can leverage more information. And also, so not only are you like not able to mess up as much because you're not speaking as much, you also get them to speak more. But the final thing, I'm trying to think. Yeah, the final thing, right, is by not speaking, you make yourself more powerful. Because when you do speak, it's going to have impact. Like, I'm sure you know, like, one of your friends or maybe a family member that speaks too much. And, like, when they speak, you never really pay attention. However, like, there's always that one quiet person. And then whenever they speak, it's like you actually listen because they don't really speak. It's the same in sales. Like, you need to, especially in the questioning process of the sales school. So, yeah, we follow a 6-step sales process. In the questioning part, which is, I think, the second or third step, essentially speak as little as possible, extract the information you need, which is going to make objection handling a lot easier later on. And I'll go over that in a minute. But, yeah, essentially, we can extract more information. And then when we speak in our pitch, it's going to have more impact because we haven't really spoken so far. And they're going to actually listen and care what you have to say. So, however, if you raise their guard and have the same overexposed sales script, then sales will be hard. So it's easy if you know what you're doing, it's hard if you don't know what you're doing. And more importantly, it's definitely hard if you just copy every other agency owners, because let me give you a hint on something. 90% of agency owners are broke. So if you copy what they do, you'll end up broke. Simple. But yeah, you have to basically follow a framework. And that's why I do frameworks, because another thing I see quite commonly is I can tell like when people are reading off scripts, and that is like the worst thing you can do. So having a framework is a lot better than just having like set questions. So when I get on sales calls, obviously I've had enough calls now to the point where I just don't even like, I literally just speak to them because I understand like the process, and I've done it literally 1,000+ times. So I can remember everything, even the pitch word for word. But you don't have to be at that point yet. You just need to not read off a script, basically, or not make it obvious. And if you do have questions, what you should do is like make it flow more into the conversation. So when they give you an answer, repeat that answer back to them, because that will make them feel like you know them more. But it will also, just have common language. And when you use the same language, it builds trust. So let's start off with the first 2 minutes of the call. How can we have an impact in the first 2 minutes to basically increase closing rate? And it's essentially a compliment plus connection. Now, a compliment is like, I see this quite, like, I know some people do it, maybe you don't, but like, just find something to compliment about them. People love compliments. And if you can compliment them and give them and build a connection in the first 2 minutes, like, you're doing good. Like, that should be the goal. So yeah, get unique. It could be their background, it could be what they're wearing. Just give them a compliment. Make them like you, because if they like you, then they're much more likely to give you something. And yeah, just try to build a connection. Once again, you don't have to speak for 5-10 minutes about what football games at the weekend or what the weather's like, because realistically people know that that's just like small talk and you should just get into it. But like 2 minutes, no more, that's what I do. Give them a compliment, build a bit of a connection, and then get into it. And then the transition from that into your questioning SOP, standard operating procedure, has to be smooth. I've recently changed my framework to the point where it's a lot more smooth, and when prospects get on sales calls with me, it's like it doesn't even feel like a sales call anymore, because it's so natural and it's such like a natural conversation. It's like it flows freely, the conversation, and I transition into the questioning very smoothly, and I repeat language back to them. So at the core, right, let me move this so you can see. At the core, every single objection will be fear, partner, money, or logistics. Those are the 4 things, and those are the only 4 things it comes down to when handling objections. So for example, I need to think about it. We've got no idea what that means. That is just a smokescreen. That could mean, fear, logistics, money, partner, or it could be like a combination of both. But once again, if we narrow it down, get on the same side as them, that's totally fine. How long do you need to think about it? And even once they say that, they need a few days. Our rebuttal next is going to be a way in which it's going to lower their guard. They're going to feel comfortable. They're going to feel like, oh, this guy's not trying to push me. I feel good. And then you're going to get into this. So this is some cool stuff. But essentially, these are the 4 things, right? And they all link to each other. So, for example, let's say someone says, never mind. I was going to give an example, but yeah. Every single objection will be one of these 4 things. And once you get to this stage of the sales process, it's literally like trying to logically make them buy. So yeah, people buy with emotion, but justify with logic, right? So when we get to this stage, it's like, how can we... Because we're not trying to convince them. Because once again, the more you push, the more they're going to push back and have resistance to buy. So we need to get on the same side. Get on the same side. But let's go to the next one, right? My framework for responding to every objection is the same. So no matter what that you throw at me, whether it's one about fear, partner, money, logistics, I need to think about it. Obviously, you're trying to narrow it down here and be on the same side as them, and get them to open up and not have resistance. But my response is going to be the same. It's acknowledge. I'm going to acknowledge. I'm going to feel the objection. I completely. I get where you're coming from. It's scary to invest, right? Like I'll even get on the same page as them, start pulling the rope with them, and then I'll relate to a similar experience if I can. Like let's say they're investing in their growth, maybe mentoring. I'll be like, but I've been in the exact same position, man. I totally understand where you're coming from. Like a year ago, and then I'll tell a story. Like obviously, you want to tell one that actually happened, and then highlight a positive outcome. So like this is what sort of what worked well for me, and then maybe give them an analogy. So an analogy or a metaphor is allowing them to come to their own conclusion rather than you telling them to come to a conclusion, or you're telling them to do a certain thing. Because when you say like, oh, I've got the best service, you should buy XYZ. No, that's not how you sell. Now, the best salespeople will tell stories which will make them come to their own conclusion in their brain that they should buy. That is how you do it. So, there's a bunch of examples. You can get creative with it. So all we need to do, right, is lower their guard and get them to speak. That's literally it. At this point, it's less about trying to convince them. It's less about pushing back. It's more about getting on the same side as them, but trying to smooth it down to where they're really trying to... Because at the core, I need to think about it, get on the same side as them, maybe ask them, yeah, that's totally fine. How long do you need to think about it? Maybe you could say that I get it. It sounds like you want to make the best decision for yourself. Am I right? Yeah, like I want to make the best decision. And I just want to make sure this is a good investment. XYZ, bunch of bullshit. So lower their guard, get them to speak, And every question you're now asking is buying time. It's buying time that you can spend with them to try to get them over the line. And we're just trying to narrow it down, really. But it's getting on the same side as them is the key here. Yeah, people buy with emotion and justified logic. At this part of the call, you're literally just trying to not raise their ego and just buy yourself more time to handle more objections and narrow it down. Because like once you narrow it down to those 4 things, or fear, money, partner, or logistics, and then go even more in depth, then you've only got to overcome that problem. Whereas the I need to think about it, you've got no idea what the fuck that is. So at this point, you're not trying to convince them to buy. The more you push, the more they push away, the more they're going to raise their guard, have resistance. You're trying to get on the same side and smooth your way into this. If you're really smart, you can go with the flow of the first objection. Like I just said, I've already gone through this, but it seems like contrary, because what you've probably been told right now watching this is that, and bearing in mind, I was not as good as sales I was now. So I used to do this because like Alex Hormozy told me to do like this rebuttal, like, oh, you don't need information to make a decision, you need time. No, sorry, the other way around. You don't need time to make a decision, you need information. And like, that's what I used to roll with, but like that won't work. Like, I mean, it does work because I've actually closed clients using it. But if you want the most effective ways to get on the same side as them, let them lower their guard. So like, yeah, you can think about it. That's fine. How long do you need? Ask a few questions. Let them think that they've got what they want, and then smooth your way back into it. And then before they know it, they'll have their card and giving you money basically, and paying for your service. So yeah, lower their guard and haven't fled their ego. Then you can hit them with the subtle indirect question to get more of an idea of what concerns they're having. So, e.g., like how I would do it is the first rebuttal would be like, yeah, that's totally fine. I get it. I totally understand. How long do you need to think about it? They'll be like, oh, 2 days. And then I'll be like, when you do go away to think about it, what do you sort of think would be the main concern or the problem? And then they're like, oh, they're thinking to themselves, okay, when I go away. So it's getting them in a frame, a mindset of like, when I go away, like they think that they're going to get away with this, but realistically they're not, because you're going to be solid here and you're going to listen to what I'm about to say. But then they're going to start to speak the problems or what they think is bad about your service, basically, or what they think could go wrong. And then you've got to solve that problem. So we're narrowing it down. Once again, the tonality is crucial. Say it in a slow, inquisitive tone, like you generally want to help them. There are a lot of factors, including action threshold, that goes into the amount of effort required to push someone over the line. For example, I need to think about it. At the top here, this could be like they could literally be 1 click away from buying your service, and at the bottom they could never buy your service. But guess what? You get the same smoke screen of I need to think about it. I need to think about it. However, the caveat is you've got no idea which type of person they are and how high or low the action thresholds are to actually making a decision or buying something. So you just have to push back. And I talked about this in the objection handling part of the other video in the module, but essentially, yeah, whoever can stay in their box more. So you've got your box of confidence in here, and they've got their box of doubt. Whoever stays in their box the longest wins the sale, right? So, for example, they could be at the bottom and be like, oh, I need to think about it. You could handle the objection. You could do the same thing. You could do the same thing, do the same thing, do the same thing 20 times. But let's say they give you one more and you don't handle it and you lose the sale. But realistically, they were all the way up here and all you had to do was overcome one more objection and you would have won the sale. That is the game here. So, let's recap. They give you a smoke screen, funnel it down with don't raise their ego here. That's a massive key one. You have to do it in a way that isn't going to piss them off, like we've talked about in this video. And it's the micro nuances that what separates bad from good sales reps. But yeah, narrow it down each time. You'll get closer and closer to the root concern. And as soon as you get to the root concern, then that is all you have to overcome to get the sale. Finally, I just want to say objections are a good thing. Me included, and other people, when I review your calls, I see like you get the objection and I can see your face immediately like drop. You're like, oh, not again. I'm happy when I get objections. Okay, in a perfect world, I'm not happy. In a perfect world, they would just buy. But I get excited. I get not confident. I like objections. Objections are a good thing. And because I've installed that into my mind, it's easier for me to overcome objections. But also, objections are a good thing because if you're getting objections, that means that you've got an agency that's actually good and it's running. Because it means you've gotten to the stage where you've had to do some type of outbound or inbound. They've had to show up for the call. You've had to go through the call. It basically means you've got everything in check, and you're doing well. So you just need to keep doing more of that. Low attachment wins. Yeah, even in relationships. So yeah, have a wonderful day. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.